Hello everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining us today for the Off to College presentation. My name is Doug Howell and I'm one of the county counselors here, but also I've spent my entire career working in higher education. I was a student here at Eastern, and then I worked here full time as well, but now I'm working at the University of Southern Indiana in Evansville. I've got a friend with me today, and I'll let her introduce herself.
My name is Helen Moore. I'm the Director of Admissions here at Eastern. Previously, Doug and I were together in housing and dining. And kind of a precursor to our presentation, I am not here to give you a heavy sell on Eastern. Okay, so don't be uncomfortable with the Director of Admissions being here and talking about college. We're here to help you answer your questions. I want you to have an inside view of what universities and colleges are looking for and how processes work. Of course, if you're here and you like Eastern and it feels like a fit, that's wonderful too. But my point today is just to assist you in whatever your future plans are past high school graduation.
So there's probably a lot to consider with after high school. Some of you may be doing a traditional route of just going right on into a four-year college. Some of you may be thinking about going to community college or trade school. Some of you may be thinking about the military or a military service academy. Some of you may be thinking about getting a job full-time and working, and that's fine, but don't forget some of the stuff that we talk about today could be relevant down the road, because maybe you get a job working full-time and you decide later on that you might want to go back to college, and so something might resonate with you, and you'll be able to look into schools at that time, because you can definitely work full-time and take some classes as well. There's also some things to think about when you're talking about a two-year college. Are you going to get a two-year certificate or degree and then go into the work field, or are you going to get a two-year degree or credits for 2 years and then transfer to a four-year college? So we're going to try to hit on some of these things. We hope that it'll be relevant for everyone, but there will be quite a bit of it is on that kind of traditional path from high school into college. But we will save time at the end. If you have questions, we'll be happy to answer those at the end of the presentation.
Awesome. Is anyone looking at your college search and you're wanting to be a collegiate athlete? Anybody thinking that way? Potentially? Okay. And the reason I say that is your search process is going to be different. You're going to have your stats and your film game tape and your huddle site and all that sort of thing, and you're reaching out to those colleges and universities and waiting to hear back from coaches. It's a very, very different search process. And the reason I bring that up is two of my kids were collegiate athletes. And so we went through that search process, and as a mom, you kind of, you think your kids are great and they're Division I athletes, and hey, we were Final Four football, so why wouldn't we go to Division I? And we quickly learned how that process works. It's a great process. It's exciting, and once you get that fit with your university or your college and you meet those teammates, that's awesome. But it is a very different search process than scheduling college visits, applying for scholarships, that sort of thing. But as a college athlete, I will tell you, one of the things, especially your senior year, in addition to your statistics, is make sure you're bumping up those grades. Because yes, there are full ride scholarships out there for athletes, but most places there's partial, and then they're looking at hopefully merit scholarships for you. So if you're a good student and a good athlete, it's a lot easier to find your fit because you're more highly recruited. So that's just my mom's spiel on that side of things.
So we want to talk a little bit about sort of the application process and what might be happening for you in the coming year of high school. And coincidentally, the EIU application goes live on Friday when these folks are heading home. So we'll dive into that a little bit, and then we'll hit on some financial aid and financial topics, and then we'll wrap up with questions.
Most college applications are going to open sometime this summer. And different colleges and universities have different timelines. Our application opens June 15th. We do that because our first open house for the summer is June 22nd or 26th, and we want our application live by the time students come to campus. We'll start accepting applications, and then we'll start making decisions at the end of August, first part of September. Some colleges, you're gonna apply, universities, you're gonna apply. They're not gonna start making decisions till December, and they pool candidates and go from there. So each college is different. The only reason I give you some examples is as you go to visit schools, ask for their timeline. Every school should have a piece kind of like this that I handed out. And again, I hand this out just as an example. Every school should have a piece like this that talks about their application timeline, admission criteria, scholarship information, that kind of thing. Okay, the other thing that I like to talk about at this point, everybody took SAT, they're probably April or junior year, correct? Okay, all right. How do you think colleges are using those scores now?
They're not optional.
You got it. It's test optional. It is a law in Illinois. All public universities in Illinois have to be test optional. So what that means is we're basing it off of the coursework, what you've done in the classroom. Okay, not what we've done on one test day. Now, if you have a really good test score, send it in because it can help you. It can help you at some institutions with scholarships. It can help you with access to honors college, those sorts of things. But we know that high schools used to spend a whole lot of time prepping for SAT. You spent from January to April preparing in your courses, doing mock exams, that sort of thing. We're not doing that as much. And so some of that emphasis has been taken off of that test score.
What would you consider a good test score?
Oh, I would consider a good test score equivalent of 28, 30 or higher. But that's going to depend on if you're at a highly selective school, that sort of thing. So that's going to vary from institution to institution. So, but I do like to talk about the test, the ACT, just because you're still required to do it as a high school student, but institutions aren't considering it the way we used to. If you had an older brother or sister who took back then with an ACT 5 or 6 years ago, they would have been flooded with, you guys are probably already getting lots of mail, but your brother or sister that took that test several years ago would have been bombarded by email because those test scores were sent all over the place. They're not as mobile, I guess you would say, as they used to be. If you took the test and you said, don't share my information with institutions, which is perfectly all right, but you want to change your mind and you're like, hey, maybe I would like to hear from some different institutions, you can go back out and opt that in so that schools like Eastern and U High and Harvard and everybody that buys test names could go back in and purchase your name. So that's an option for you. Okay? Yeah. Oh, I thought you would jump in there. Okay. As far as the search process goes, my best advice for you is to go and visit college campuses. Yes, you're here today at Eastern, you've been here all week, you've been on campus, you've been in our classrooms, but it's not the same as a college visit, where you can come in, you can talk one-on-one with an admissions staff member about scholarships, about your major, career outcomes, study abroad, scholarship opportunities, all those sorts of things that are really focused on you as you visit. I encourage you to visit all kinds of different schools too. Visit the small private, visit the community college, visit the flagship, visit the mid-major, and just see what fit is best for you. You may have in your mind, okay, this is the kind of institution I want to go to, but then you walk on campus and it doesn't feel right. Or you may take a chance and and walk on campus, you know, who are very interested in, and you feel it. And I don't know any other way to say it except it's a fit thing. You walk in and you go, this is where I see myself for the next 4 years. It's, you know, I'm connecting with the students, with the faculty, the campus is great, the facilities are what I'm looking for, it's the right size, it's all of those pieces. Okay, so visit. Anybody have like family vacations coming up and you're doing college visits on the way or doing those tours? Okay, those are great. Do all those, pick some schools. If there's a school that you're passing that you hadn't planned on visiting, go ahead and stop. Even if you just get out and take a look around and walk around their campus. But those official college visits are really important to you. In high school, once you're back in classes for the fall, you're going to have days off that you can use for those college visits. Use them. Go out there, do your research, find out what there is. Okay. The other thing that I like to tell students, you don't have to know what you want to do for the rest of your life when you're 17 years old. So if you are undecided, that's what college does. Or maybe you think you know what you want to do and you get into college and you're like, this is not it. I thought I wanted to be an accountant until I took managerial accounting and I thought, there's no way I can do this for 4 years. This would just be death to me. And so you find your way through and what fits you. So that is so important, and that is another role of what colleges do. We all have career services, so we'll meet with you, we'll go over your skill set, we'll go over what you like, we'll go over what kind of work environment you like. Do you want to be in a cubicle and some people are happy with that, I'm focused, I'm doing stuff, or do you want to be in a more lively environment where you're interacting more, and you're up and you're moving and you're doing things. Career services will help you as you work your way through college. But don't feel pressured to be, make that announcement that you're going to be a neurosurgeon in 10 or 12 years. It's okay. Take that time and figure it out.
One of the neat things about attending Boise State is that you get to stay here at Eastern. This may, for some of you, be the first time that you've been on a college campus or stayed overnight on a college campus or stayed for several nights in a row. And so this is a great opportunity for you to kind of soak it in, because what we're doing here, we're staying in Lawson Hall and Taylor Hall. These are the same buildings that the EIU students stay in. We're eating in the same dining halls. We're using some of the same classrooms and lab facilities and the concert hall. And so this is a nice little taste of what you might expect if you went away to school at a school like Eastern, but also you can kind of get a feel for what it would be like at any school, just maybe different sizes. This is a nice opportunity, and if you've had other camp experiences, you can kind of put all of that together, and then you have a frame of reference for when you are doing these college visits, and you can kind of get a sense of what it might be like at a different place or at several different places, because you do have this frame of reference from this 1 week experience. And so think about that as you're going forward into the next few months and into the next school year.
And as you're filling out those college applications, include that you were selected. You were personally selected for American Legion Boise State. Not everybody gets to do that. There's only 204 of you across the whole state of Illinois who are here. That's a huge positive on that application. In schools are very impressed by that, so make sure you do that. One of the handouts that we gave you is this. This is from the Illinois Student Assistance Center. And the whole point of this organization is to help Illinois high school students go to college. So whether that's public, private, community college, technical school, it's to further your education. So that is their whole point of existence. This sheet is really handy. It gives you some really good tips that are very common sense. So a couple that I pointed out yesterday and I'd like to talk to you guys about is doing that research. Research your schools and your career choices online. Do your pre-research before you make those college visits. I talked about the test scores already. And I talked about visiting campuses, but also attending college fairs. Depending on where you're at, it depends on where those college fairs are and how large those are. Sometimes host college fairs are maybe 10 universities or colleges. Sometimes they're 200 or 300. But that gives you an opportunity to go to one spot and talk to multiple schools all at one time. So take advantage of those college fairs. Okay. And then the back sheet talks about how to pay for college. So just some really good information to hold on to. Every high school in the state of Illinois has a staff member from ISAC assigned to that school for that region, and that's what they're there for, is to help you. So they'll help you with financial aid, they'll help with the alternative application for financial aid, they'll help with scholarship search, all of those things, that's what they're there for, is help you.
So, cost of higher education, as you probably heard about, is expensive. How many people are a little nervous or worried about paying for higher education? Yeah, about half of you. Even a staff member in the room, still worried. Yeah, and so this is real. This is a real thing that you all have to be worried about, have to be mindful of. And we got some information here. I think we really don't want to overlook all of the possibilities for scholarship money, because then that's money that you can apply for, earn, or be granted, and not have to pay back in the future. And so that's always a good thing.
FAFSA, which is the financial aid application, federal financial aid application, is changing this year. The federal government says we're going to make it easier for you all and your families, which is fantastic. There's some programming technical side of things that are going to take a little bit longer. So where it used to be open mid-fall, it's going to be the end of the fall before they're open. I always have students come up to me and say, I'm not going to fill out the FAFSA because I don't think I'm going to qualify for anything. I would encourage you to go ahead and do that anyway. There is a requirement in the state of Illinois that says that every student has to fill out a FAFSA before they can graduate. Fill out a FAFSA or opt out. Go ahead and do it, because even if you think I'm not going to qualify for anything, and my parents make too much money, or I have other circumstances, go ahead and fill that out. Certain colleges and universities require the FAFSA on file for you to qualify for scholarships. So even if you're not going to get a Pell Grant, or you're going to get any kind of need-based aid, they do require that to be on file. So go ahead and do it. Easy process, will get you through it. Pell, which is a federal grant, has been increased for next year, benefiting you all. If you stay in the state of Illinois, our MAP grants have also gone up significantly. So there's more free money out there from both the state and the federal government. On top of that, every institution has their own money to give you to encourage you to come to the campus and enroll. And I'm going to talk about Eastern as an example, but every institution that you look at is going to have something similar. One thing that we have on the inside of the brochure, it talks about merit. We assign merit scholarships at the point of admission. So when you apply, if you have a 3.0 or higher, we're going to give you money for 4 years. We're going to guarantee that. That's before you filled out a FAFSA or any kind of scholarship application. So that's out there. We do give students the opportunity to increase their grades, because your junior year is typically your toughest semester, or your toughest year. Senior year, you've got most of those requirements out of the way, maybe taking some electives for fun, and moving through that. So your senior year may give you an opportunity to increase your grades even more than where you're at now. And we take that into consideration. Every institution is also going to have what we have as the equivalent to our honor scholarships, which are full ride, tuition fees, room and board scholarships for 4 years. All those are going to be competitive. That's a separate application process. Most likely involves an interview. Ours does. You come to campus, you interview with our faculty from the Honors College, and then they select from there. But those are standard things that all universities are going to have out there. And they're going to give you free money for you being a good student. Okay.
You want to think about if you look on the websites, or if you get some of the material that you'll get from colleges, will list like the cost of attendance. It might be on their website, it might be on their publications. If you're looking at private schools or even like religiously affiliated or not, but private schools, that number is almost always going to be much bigger than public schools. Eastern is one of the most affordable schools in the Midwest, so their number is going to look very different than a private school like Notre Dame, for example. And so what you want to do, though, is engage in the process, at least through the point of getting this financial aid information going, because a lot of students don't know this, but the private schools will throw on a lot of aid, a lot of scholarship information money for merit, for these different things, and it can really bring that sticker price down to something that's closer to what you would see at a state school. Similarly to going out of state. There are students that go out of state to a state school, and that out-of-state tuition amount comes down to something that's more in line or even cheaper than some Illinois state schools, just because of the way that they do that scholarship information. And you wouldn't know that if you don't go through and apply for that, and that's really kind of that scholarship information is a great equalizer, because it's really all about how much are you going to pay at the end of the day that you want to worry about, and this financial aid information is how you get to that.
Yeah, we always talk to students about look at what your out-of-pocket is. When everything's said and done, financial aid, scholarships, everything's done, athletic scholarships, what is your out-of-pocket cost that you and your family are going to have to pay? So look at that. We work with a company called Academic Works, which a lot of universities work with. It is the scholarship search process for that institution. So once students are admitted to Eastern, they get an access code, they go in starting in November, and you can fill out one application to apply to multiple scholarships. We have 800 scholarships for our incoming students, and some of those have multiple recipients. Like we have a community ambassador scholarship that's $2,000 a piece, and you get 20 of these off. Or our full ride honor scholarships, we give multiple students out. So look to see if there's some kind of one-stop shopping for scholarships at the institution. It makes it much easier. Speaking of that, I forgot to mention Common App. Who's heard of Common App? Okay, great. Common App is, and most of this depends on which high school you go to, whether your high school guidance counselor is connected with Common App or not. Common App is a way for you to fill out one college application, one essay, one activity sheet, all the things that we ask for on those college applications. You fill it out once, and you can send it to multiple schools. Most of the time, schools waive your application fee when you're using Common App. Okay? It's easy for you. It doesn't mean multiple trips to your guidance office to have your transcripts in. Once you fill out a Common App and you've selected an institution, all of that just happens automatically and your file is complete. So you have the application, the scholarship, you have everything that you need to apply to those different schools. So it's very efficient. Takes a little time the first time through, but it's only a one-time thing. So Common App is a huge time saver for a lot of people. Other ways to pay for college besides scholarship.
We've been talking about the scholarship aspect, which is great. You want to try to get as many of those as possible. Don't forget, there are scholarship opportunities here at Boise State. Some of you may be working on an essay or narration. Those are each a $2,000 scholarship, goes to the winner. The person elected governor gets a scholarship. There are other offices that are competing for scholarships. So these types of opportunities here should not be overlooked, because all of that money adds up in the end. When you're thinking about you're going to go away to school, how many of you have a job right now when you're in high school? Yeah. And so you probably might be thinking, well, I'm going to go away to school and I'll get a job when I'm there too. So if you're working, if you're away at a four-year school and looking for that job, we would recommend that you look for an on-campus job. Kelly and I both work on campus here at Eastern, and it's a great opportunity to kind of get in. Like we've been talking about that fit and how you feel, not belonging. So it's a great way to make a group of friends amongst your other coworkers who are in that same position. And also, in addition to sort of like I worked at the front desk here at one of the residence halls, and so I got paid that hourly wage for working at that front desk. But you can also, perhaps after doing that for a while, kind of get in on some other positions that might be available. For example, you might apply for the resident assistant position, which is like a peer mentor position where you live on the floor, help out all the other people that are on the floor. And in that case, you're going to be getting free room and board, free meal plan, free room, and maybe even a paycheck on top of that. And so you can take more of an entry-level experience and then turn that into another experience. Maybe you get involved on campus in like a student leadership position, like a student government or something. You work your way up, and after a couple of years, you're in sort of like a student body president or something along those lines. And maybe at that school, you get a stipend for that or a scholarship for that. And so you want to be thinking about what are some opportunities that might be a paycheck right now, but they're going to get me involved, they're going to help me find a niche, and then eventually they could be an even bigger payout, so to speak. And so those are some good things to be thinking about. Also, when you're working on campus, your supervisor is obviously more in tune with you being a student than you might have at like an off-campus job. Typically, when you're talking about on-campus employment, supervisors have a vested interest in making sure that you're doing well academically. They're going to be paying attention to what your schedule is versus your class schedule, making sure that you're not taking on too much. Also, the location of your job is usually quite convenient to where you're going to school and where you're living, and so you don't have to worry about driving back and forth quite a bit when you're trying to get to work and back. So that's another way to think about how, if nothing else, you got some spending money, but maybe even you're able to stash some away to help pay some of the bills down the road as well.
Yeah, in our office and in every admissions office across the nation, we rely on students. There are tour guides, there are student ambassadors that work for students. They work our large events, they work our alumni events. They're kind of the face of the university. It's a fun job. We pay it. You come in early. Like our incoming freshmen will move in on Monday. All the rest of the incoming freshmen won't move in until Thursday. So by the time everyone else shows up, those students have already connected with each other. They've got a friend base. They already know campus. They actually help the other freshmen move in and are ready to go and really in the swing of things. So campus jobs can do that too. It's kind of like a family away from a home. I know we've both had students come in our office that work for us that are dealing with something. Maybe they broke up with a boyfriend or girlfriend, or maybe there's a serious issue, health issue at home, or maybe they just failed their first test that they've ever had. And so it's nice to have those kind of parents away from home that can help you with those things. So, and we have, like I said, we have about 50 students that work in our office, and it's great.
So, one thing to think about in you're going away to school, are you going to be going far enough away that you're not going to be able to live at home? Even if you are kind of close, is it still too far? You don't want to be driving back and forth, a couple hours every day to go to class, 3 or 4 or 5 days a week, because that won't be good for your academic performance. So be thinking about these things. Well, the school that's close to home, might be good for everything. You still then have to decide, am I going to live at home or I'm going to live at school? If you're going to a community college first, you're going to save some money that way. You're almost certainly going to live on campus. Most community colleges don't have housing, and that's great. But then, if you're planning to transfer, again, you're going to be thinking about this decision of, do I transfer to this 4-year school, and do I live on campus or off campus? A lot of housing departments have housing set aside specifically for transfer students, and if not specifically for transfer students, specifically for juniors and seniors, the upperclassmen students. And so those are the things you want to be thinking about. You want to make sure you're making sound financial decisions, because you want to look at the bills. You want to look at what you're going to be paying for your living expenses. And as much as possible, you want to be able to compare the apples to apples as much as you can. Some schools, like Eastern, and really everywhere I've worked at, have at least a minimum requirement for students that need to live on campus. And so you need to figure out what those minimums are as you're engaging with that. And so, for example, at Eastern, if you don't live within 60 miles of Charleston, you have to live on campus for your first year. Maybe it's just the first year, some school might be a second year, might be every year, just depends on that school. That's one thing you're gonna wanna look into, because if you have to live on campus, then that sort of makes the decision for you. But if you do have that choice, or if you only have the 1 year requirement that you're gonna move off campus, you wanna be thinking about, you know, if you're deciding to live off campus, what do those expenses look like? When you're talking about on-campus charges, you're typically going to see, here's my charge for the room or for an apartment, and then here's my charge for the meal plan. Maybe the meal plan is required, maybe it's optional. Maybe there's a couple of different choices at different price points for your meal plan, and you need to make those decisions. But those are fairly upfront, and they're all included. But when you're looking at living off campus, you're gonna be able to find the rent, the amount that the landlord's gonna charge, and maybe you're gonna live with a couple of roommates and you know you're gonna split that rent, and that's the rent. But don't forget, you also have to pay the electric bill, the internet bill, maybe there's a trash removal bill, the water bill. You're gonna have to pay these different things that the landlord may or may not be putting up front to you. And then when you get into it, you don't want a surprise when you start making these payments and all of a sudden this is starting to add up to more than you were used to paying when you lived on campus. So try to compare those things, because what you don't want to have happen is have your budget all planned out, you got your scholarships and all of this stuff factored in, and all of a sudden you're coming up short because you didn't do the budget correctly on the housing on the front end when you were thinking about it. Now, one way to help close this gap is loans. I know that loans are scary right now. It's like a big topic. People's loan balances are on the high end. That's the news that you hear. Not everybody has it that way, nor do you need to.
Yeah, it is not necessary at all to graduate from 4-year degree with $140,000 in debt. That is not necessary. One, every institution and many institutions are like Eastern. About 80% of our students qualify for some kind of sort of scholarship or financial aid. So they're not paying everything out of their pocket. Loans sometimes are unnecessary. So you've got almost everything paid for, but you're short a couple $1,000. So you're going to take that student loan on. That's an investment in your future. That's an investment in what you're going to be able to do once you have that 4-year degree. Do not take student loans out to buy an 80-inch flat screen for your husband's car. That's not a good use of those student loans. And I see students do that, and when financial aid refund checks have come out, because we see Amazon deliveries like crazy. But using a loan to fill that gap between your scholarships, your financial aid, and what your family is able to pay is okay if you do it within reason. There are 2 types of loans you're going to be offered through your financial aid package. One is called a subsidized and one is an unsubsidized. If first choice is take the subsidized loan. Why do I say that? Because you don't pay interest on that loan until you are no longer in college, okay? So once you graduate from undergrad, if you decide to go to grad school, they're still not charging you. If you decide to get your doctorate, they're still not charging you. It's once you're finished with school and you're gainfully employed. Okay? So that is very, very helpful for students. And sometimes it's just necessary to do everything that. But with scholarships, with working, I feel like most students, this surprises most people, but you're going to have a lot more free time in college than you do right now in high school. Right now you're going to school probably 7:30 to 2:30, 7:30 to 3, something like that. Then maybe you have practice after that, and maybe you have a job. When you're in college, a typical college schedule is 15 to 18 hours a week. Those are the hours you're going to be spending in class. So maybe Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday you have 3 hours of class in each of those days. You're expected to do your homework, your research, your studying, your reading outside of the class setting. So that's going to take up a lot of time. But after that, you still have a lot of free time. So consider even a campus job, which just gives you 5 to 10 hours a week. Just for that spending money, it gives you some freedom. Also gives you those connections on campus. But it is very doable to work a few hours a week to supplement your college. And if that means you don't have to take out student loans, even better. Just sets you up.
As we said at the beginning, there's lots of different paths going forward. If you're thinking about going into that full-time career and you're going to work for a few years, maybe save up some money and then go back to school, maybe do school part-time, whether it be a 4-year institution or a 2-year institution, there are going to be people who are able to help you in that. I mean, it may be that you're doing this quote-unquote non-traditional path, but the people in the admissions office, the people that are there to help get students on the path there to that school, they're still going to be able to help you even though you're working full-time. It's not like Kelly's only talking to high school students, right? There's opportunities for everyone at every stage of your life if that's what you want to do. Maybe you decide, maybe you got that trade in mind and you're going to become an electrician, but perhaps you have aspirations of going on and owning your own business and being your own electrician business. You want to get into the business, college business and start taking some of those classes. So you do the trade work, you get a good work foundation, and then you go to school to do that. Perfectly acceptable. These folks are going to be able to help you along the way. Perhaps you want to go into the military. You do your service in the military, 4, 5, 10 years, whatever it is. Then you have a whole other layer of help out there because you'll be eligible for veterans benefits and the Veteran Service Office or whatever it might be called of the school you're interested in. And then you'll have that whole other layer of folks who are there to help specifically the veterans that are coming or want to go to that school kind of navigate the process after the military. So there's lots of opportunities. What we've been talking about, you can see those connections down the road, even if you're not hopping right into a school right after high school. But whatever you do, we hope that you are able to find that fit. And when it comes to college and persisting in college, in other words, continuing on from freshman to sophomore, all the way through to graduation, studies show that finding that fit, finding that belonging, getting that sense that you're supposed to be there, whether that's that initial gut feeling that you get when you walk onto campus, which we hear about time and time and time again, no matter where you're working at, or whether it is that once you're there and you've established that group of friends and you become a part of that student organization, and then you found your niche, your group, you've got that belonging. That is an important factor in your persistence in college. So make sure that you're doing that and you're kind of investigating these things all through next year as and really over the next couple of months as you're doing these applications and visits. And then once you're there, you're getting yourself established and being responsible and still looking for scholarships in most cases, but being able to cover those bills, and then you get the goal at the end, which is graduate and go on and get a good job. So hopefully you've got something out of this. And if you're specifically interested in Eastern, some of Kelly's staff members, admissions counselors, will be in the cafeteria tomorrow during the lunch period. So you'd be welcome to go. I'm sure they'll be decked out in EIU and they'll be blue all over the table. They'll probably have some other stuff to give away. But that's if you're specifically interested and would like to ask them some questions, about what the process is here at Eastern. They'd be happy to help. We are also going to open up the floor to questions. We'll be able to talk about anything that we talked about today. So what questions do you have?
So for out of state, people that are applying out of state, do you set the same expectations as you do for in-state people, or a higher expectation?
I don't know. I mean, now in terms of the cost of attendance are often going to be different if it's a state school.
Yeah.
So there is that difference, but I don't know in terms of the admissions requirements.
Criteria for us are exactly the same as the United States.
Okay.
So, yeah. And I think most institutions for that same way.
Okay.
But the cost sometimes is different. With Eastern, we have all 50 states are at the same rate as long as students have paid for their own.
Does having a preference for in-state will really hurt your chances as an out-of-state student, or you could still apply and maybe get through?
Ask me that question.
So if you were trying to apply for a college as an out-of-state student, but the college kind of prefers in-state students, will that kind of hurt your chances a lot, or will it apply there?
I think that's gonna depend on the institution and their environment. I know that, sometimes like what I would call a flagship school. So in Iowa and Illinois, Purdue, because they're public, they have a lot of pressure to serve their students from their particular state.
Yeah.
And so they're scrutinized sometimes when that in-state population is smaller than their out-of-state.
Yeah.
So I think they do watch that some.
Yeah.
But I don't know that that is a huge burden
Okay.
for the mittens. So it's a good question. Other question? Yeah.
So after we were in like college, what kind of like scholarship opportunities are there if there are any?
Absolutely. In every institution, I talked about academic works. That's for both our incoming students and our continuing. So we're going to have scholarships that are specifically for a junior special ed major, okay, or a member of an Alpha Gamma Delta who's going into business, okay. But so you won't qualify for that as an incoming student, but you will as you continue. Or a student, it may be a research grant in biological sciences. So you have to have a certain amount of experience and letters of recommendation in order to qualify for that. So, yeah, actually, as you get in and you find those individual scholarships, there's still a lot that are helping for students. So, education. Anybody thinking about being a teacher? Okay, there's a lot of money out there for teachers right now, especially in the state of Illinois. You may have heard about the Golden Apple Scholarship, which is a 4-year institution, also provides mentorship with other Golden Apple current teachers, a summer institute, that sort of thing. There are teach grants for the state of Illinois. There's early education grants. There's a lot of money out there because we're in a teacher shortage. The state of Illinois realizes that, they recognize it, and they're going to give you money to go to school to be a teacher. Yes?
Our basal pilot was really hard, it's money-wise. Would there be any scholarship for schools you would recommend?
There are public and private institutions that have aeronautics or that have that degree. Off the top of my head, U of I, SIU Carbondale, I know does, and maybe Edwardsville. I know Carbondale and U of I do within the state of Illinois. So if you just go out on any of the search engines, or if you're in niche or any of those college search processes, and you just type in, I want to be a pilot, it's going to tell you what schools, and then you'll be able to say, oh, I want a 4-year, or I want a public, or I want a private, or I want this size, and it should go there and cut and free. Absolutely. And yes, they're going to have scholarships that are out there for those institutions, but you might also check the airlines. There's pilot shortage too.
Yeah, that's where I was wanting.
Yes.
From the military.
Okay, so, or you're thinking about maybe like Air Force National Guard or something like that. SIU Edwardsville does have an Air Force ROTC program. So that is a great scholarship opportunity. Actually, one of my son's friends is in, and he's going to fly platforms. So, and he's kind of a senior year, that's what he's doing actually this summer. So there's those opportunities too. Yeah. Great. Yeah, you got it. Other questions? You know one thing we forgot to talk about?
What's that?
There's a Boys State Scholarship specifically for this group of students. So the 204 of you that are here, if anyone decides that yes, Eastern's a good fit for me, it's where I want to be, there's a scholarship specifically for this current group of citizens who decides to go to Eastern for fall of 24. It's $2,000. So keep that in mind, if that's the path that may work for you.
Well, thank you all very much for your attention. It's been great. This group, now you just have to go right upstairs to the Meet the Legion presentation. So it's real easy to get to your next thing. Thanks a lot and have a good rest of your day.